Hello, everyone. Today's story will make you think twice before you ever step near a quiet lake again, because sometimes what waits beneath the water isn't a fish. It's something that remembers you. Stay close and don't look away, because once you hear what happened, you'll never see fishing the same way again. The lake was silent that night, a vast mirror of black water veiled in heavy fog, swallowing the moonlight like an ancient secret. The locals called it the Drowned Hollow, a name that carried with it a weight of dread and old tragedy. They said that once a village had stood where the water now slept, before the earth opened and the floods came, burying lives beneath the surface. The fishermen, hardened by years and disbelief, laughed at their ghost tales, believing only in his net, his hook, and the steady rhythm of water. He arrived before dusk, his boots crunching the brittle leaves that lined the muddy shore. The mist was already forming, curling around the reeds like pale fingers tracing forgotten shapes. He set down his lantern, its glow a trembling heart in the dark, and cast his line into the quiet lake. The ripples spread outward and vanished, leaving the world still again, as though the lake had never been disturbed at all. For hours, he fished in near silence, hearing only the occasional splash of something unseen and the soft groan of water shifting under the fog. He felt alone, but not in the comforting way solitude often feels by the water. This was different, heavy, as if the air itself had weight. The stories returned to him, of cries at midnight, of fishermen who swore the lake whispered their names. He shook the thoughts away and lit a cigarette, the flare of the match small but defiant against the cold damp. He thought of home, of the small cottage with its empty hearth, of how fishing was the only thing that gave him peace. Yet, tonight, even peace seemed foreign, replaced by a crawling unease that tightened around his chest. When the line jerked suddenly, his heart leapt. Finally, something had bitten. He grinned, gripping the rod, ready for the fight. But it was heavy, too heavy. Whatever lay beneath wasn't struggling like a fish. It was dragging, dead weight, pulling against him with a strange persistence. He braced himself, planting his boots deep into the soft mud as the rod bent dangerously. The line strained, the reel screamed, and still it didn't rise. He cursed under his breath, tightening his grip, and pulled with all his strength. Then the tension changed. It wasn't a pull anymore. It was resistance, something alive that didn't want to come up. The fog thickened, swallowing his lantern's glow until the lake seemed endless, black, and formless. His breath came out in small clouds, trembling in the cold air. Then came the sound, faint, wet, and wrong. A bubbling gasp, like something breaking the surface to breathe. He froze. The sound came again, closer this time, from just beyond the reach of his lantern. His eyes strained through the mist, searching for shape or shadow, but saw only movement in the water. Something rising. The rod trembled violently, then went slack. The fisherman's chest tightened. He stepped back, trying to reel in the line, but it refused to come. His lantern flickered, its weak flame nearly extinguished by the damp wind. Then, in the darkness, the water broke. What surfaced wasn't a fish. A hand, pale and slick, burst from the depths, gripping the fishing line so tightly the knuckles shone white. The fisherman staggered backward, his boots slipping in the mud, his breath caught in his throat. He could see the fingers now, long and thin, nails cracked and dark. They twitched once, then tightened their hold on the rod. The fisherman dropped it instantly, stumbling away from the shore, his eyes locked on the spot where the hand had appeared. The fog swirled like smoke, and the water rippled outward as if something larger was moving beneath. His mind screamed to run, but his legs refused. He heard it again, the gasping breath, desperate, hollow, like the sound of lungs filled with water. It seemed to echo across the entire lake, weaving through the mist and coming from every direction at once. The fisherman turned and ran, his boots splashing through shallow pools, his lantern swinging wildly in his grip. Behind him, something moved, a faint slapping sound like wet feet against stone. He didn't dare look back. The reeds brushed his coat as he stumbled toward the tree line, the air colder now, sharp and thin. When he reached his small cart at the edge of the forest path, he dared a glance back. The fog had thickened even more, covering the lake entirely, but the water was still moving. Waves lapped against the shore, though no wind blew. He stood there, trembling, trying to convince himself it was just the current, or his mind playing tricks. But then he saw it. The rod he had dropped was still upright, the line stretched taut, disappearing into the water. Something beneath was still holding it. The lantern's flame sputtered, casting the faint outline of what looked like a figure standing just beyond the edge of the lake. It was motionless, featureless, yet terribly human in shape. He blinked, and it was gone. He didn't return home that night. Instead, he took refuge in the old boathouse near the hill, locking the doors and lighting every lamp he could find. The night outside was alive with noises he couldn't name. Soft knocks, dripping water, and at one point, the faint dragging of something along the wooden walls. He sat by the fire, clutching the rusted crucifix that hung from his neck, praying without words. Sleep came only in fragments, each one broken by the same sound. That breath, wet and gasping, just outside the door. When dawn finally came, the fog had lifted, and silence returned, heavy and absolute. The next morning, the villagers found his boat, half sunken near the edge of the drowned hollow. His fishing rod lay beside it, the line snapped clean. They said it looked as if he had seen something that drove him mad. His eyes wide open, staring into nothing, his face pale and drained. He never spoke of that night again, though sometimes he was seen standing by the lake at dusk, staring at the water as if listening for something. When asked, he only muttered that the lake doesn't forget, that it remembers every name, every voice, every breath that has ever fallen into it. The villagers began to avoid the lake entirely after that, and no one fished there again. Years later, long after the fishermen had vanished, a traveler passing through the area stopped to rest by the drowned hollow. He said the night was calm and quiet until he heard a faint sound across the water, the sound of something gasping for air. He thought it might be an animal until he saw the faint glow of a lantern flickering on the far shore, swaying gently as if someone was still there, waiting for a catch that should never have been taken from the depths.